Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Of the two sons, Kashyapa and Purnima, herein Purnima's descendants are described. An elaborate description of these descendants will be given in the 6th canto. It is also understood herein that Devakulya is the presiding deity of the river Ganges, which comes down from the heavenly planet to this planet and is accepted to be sanctified because it touched the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this chapter is the genealogical table of the daughters of Manu. And this chapter began with Manu, Swayambhuva Manu. This is the whole conversation between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. Maitreya is explaining the Bhagavatam to Vidura. And it began with Swayambhuva Manu's 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters. And the first verse that we read today, verse number 9, are describing his 2 sons. Swayambhuva's Manu 2 sons were Priyavrata and Uttanapad. Uttanapad had, what was the son's name of Uttanapad? Dhruva. So they became very powerful kings. So these were the 2 sons of Swayambhuva Manu, and he had 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti and Prasuti. And regarding Akuti, we read in the first few verses how Akuti begot 2 children who were not ordinary child. They were the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu and the goddess of Lakshmi. These were the 2 children of Akuti. And then in verse number 8 and 9, we heard about Devahuti, how Devahuti was given to the great sage Kardama Muni, and his children are also spread all over the world. Kashyapa and one more, Kashyapa and Purnima, and their children, their descendants are also spread all over the world. And now in this verse, the descendants of Purnima are described. So Swayambhuva Manu's daughter Prasuti, and Prasuti had this is Kardama Muni's daughter. From Kardama Muni's daughter, so Swayambhuva Manu's daughter Devahuti married to Kardama Muni, and then Kardama Muni's daughter was Kala, who gave birth to 2 children, Kashyapa and Purnima. And now in this verse, Purnima's 3 children are described. Purnima begot 3 children, namely Viraja, Visvaga and Devakulya. And here in this translation, in this verse number 14, it is described that of these 3, Devakulya was the water which washed the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead and which later transformed into the Ganges of the heavenly planet. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that it is understood herein that Devakulya is the presiding deity of the river Ganges in the heavenly planet. So although there is the Ganga Mata, Ganga Devi that exists in this planet Earth, in the heavenly planet, the name of the presiding deity of the river Ganges is Devakulya. And herein it is mentioned that this Ganges river is accepted to be very sanctified, very pure. We all know taking bath in river Ganges can cleanse our sins. So what is the reason that Mother Ganges is so pure and so sanctified and everybody throng to Ganges to take a bath, to get purified? What is the reason? The reason here is mentioned because it touches the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. So this is the power, this is the potency that the touch of the lotus feet of Lord Hari has. It can completely purify anyone. And that's how Mother Ganges has that potency to purify anyone and everyone who comes in contact with it. Prabhupada once, when he was giving a talk, he recalls he remembers something. He had a friend of his staying in Calcutta. Calcutta is the place where Mother Ganges flows through, so that way Calcutta is a blessed place. And he says there used to be one person, Mr. Banerjee, and I can't exactly remember the name, whether it was Banerjee or somebody, but one person, he said he would never go to a doctor whenever he would fall sick. Of course, he wouldn't fall sick too often, but whenever he would fall sick, he had only one medicine. He would drink the Ganges water. And in a very short time, he would get cured. That is the power of the Ganges water. So anyone who bathes in it, and so there are some people who regularly bathe in the Ganges water, and by regularly bathing in the Ganges water also the health remains very good, even material health. Of course, bathing in the Ganges water does not only make you materially healthy, it makes you spiritually inclined also. That is the potency of Ganges water, because the Ganges water is spiritually potent because it has touched the lotus feet of Lord Hari. So that is how the Ganges water is so purifying, and we know in India, wherever the Mother Ganges flow, everybody goes to touch, to have bath or to drink the holy water Ganges. The two very prominent, or 3-4 very prominent places where Ganges water flows and where millions of pilgrims go is at the beginning in Haridwar and Prayag, then in the middle in Sangam near Allahabad, and then at the end in Ganga Sagar, where Ganges meets the ocean. So just like Mother Ganges becomes pure by the touch of the lotus feet of Lord Hari, Prabhupada writes, in the same way, if we also touch the lotus feet of Lord Hari, we can also become very pure. And what is the meaning of we touching the lotus feet of Lord Hari? We touching the lotus feet of Lord Hari means serving the lotus feet of Lord Hari. Once to one Pujari, Prabhupada writes, Pujaris are very blessed. They are very fortunate because they get an opportunity to touch the lotus feet of Lord Hari. And in another place, Prabhupada is saying touching the lotus feet of Lord Hari means serving the lotus feet of Lord Hari. Of course, serving the lotus feet of Lord Hari means Krishna consciousness, serving the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. But to a Pujari, Prabhupada gives a very special instruction. You have a special opportunity of touching the lotus feet of Lord Hari. So how you should touch the lotus feet? He says, apply tulsi leaf with chandan on the lotus feet of Lord Hari. That is the meaning of touching the lotus feet of Lord Hari. So how did Mother Ganges descend to this material world? There are many stories. At least two of them that we know of. One was in the Vaman Alankara, Vaman Dev incarnation, where Vaman Dev pierced the sky, and from the sky, from the heavenly planet, or from the spiritual world rather, that the Ganges comes in. And another instance is when Bhagirath, we all know Bhagirath's determination, it's popularly known as that. So this is another pastime, how Mother Ganges descended to this material world. Bhagirath was a great devotee, and he did lot of tapasya and austerity to call Mother Ganges from the upper planets. And what was the reason why he did so much of tapasya? Because his forefathers were cursed because they had offended one Muni, one Rishi, and they were burnt to ashes. So it was told to him that he can free his ancestors from the curse only if they are sprinkled by Ganges water. That is the power of Ganges. So he did a lot of tapasya, and finally Mother Ganges becomes pleased by his tapasya. She gives him darshan and she says, okay, I am ready to descend in this material world because you have pleased me, but there are two things that you must consider. And what are the two things that Mother Ganges said? She says, the first thing is that when I descend from the upper planets, I will be falling from the sky. Somebody has to sustain me. Somebody has to control me. Because if I fall from the sky from such a great distance, and if nobody sustains me, controls me, then I will pierce the earth, planet Earth, and I will go and fall into the lower planetary system, lower planets, Patala, which I do not want to do. So who's going to do that? It's not such an easy task to sustain Mother Ganges when it's falling from a force, the whole river. So for that, Bhagirath went and prayed to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva agreed, because Lord Shiva is a very powerful personality. We know he could be the only person who could do this, just like he had the entire poison, he drank the entire poison and contained it in his neck. And he's a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, of Lord Krishna. So Lord Shiva became that personality who sustained. So Mother Ganges first descended from the spiritual world onto the head of Lord Shiva. And on his head, Lord Shiva sustained her, and then she started flowing into this planet Earth. And the second question, very interesting. Mother Ganges says, okay, I will come to this material planet, and because I am pure, because I have been touched by the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, many, many people will want to take bath in my holy water. And they will release their sins in my water. So while they may become purified, I will become contaminated by their sins. So who's going to cleanse me? Who's going to purify me? And to that, Bhagirath said that, yes, you may feel, actually it's not like that. Mother Ganges is a pure devotee and she is always blessed with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But still she had a concern like this. She felt like this, that I'll get contaminated, so it's going to purify me. So then Bhagirath says in the Bhagavatam, it is pointed out that when the pure devotees take bath in your holy water, then all the sins that you have accumulated by way of transferring from the sinful men who take bath in your water, all those sins you will be washed off by the power of a pure devotee. So that is the potency of a pure devotee. He can wash off the sins of unlimited persons. It is said, Bhaktivedanta Thakur has sung a song, Gangara Parasha Hoile Pashyata Pavana. There are two ways by which you can become purified. One is Gangara Parasha Hoile Pashyata Pavana. After you touch the holy water of Ganga, Gangara Parasha means to touch. Paschata Pavana. After that, Paschata Pavana, you will become purified. But there's another way you can become purified. Darshane Pavitra Koro, Ei Tomar Guna. So this is a song being sung for a pure devotee. But you are so powerful that simply by seeing you, one can become purified. So Prabhupada, in this purport, he writes, he gives us a very important instruction that we must all follow if we are serious devotees, disciples of Srila Prabhupada. He says, just like Mother Ganges is concerned like this, actually Mother Ganges will remain pure. It's not that she'll become impure by somebody bathing in her, but she's concerned that what will happen to people who take bath and they will transfer their sins to me. So how will I become purified? Prabhupada says, in the same way, the spiritual master, a pure devotee, has taken on the responsibility of delivering all his disciples to the spiritual world. And how does he do this? So when he takes on the karma, the sinful reactions of all his disciples. In 2-3 places Prabhupada has said. And so sometimes the spiritual master actually suffers because he has taken on the sum total of the sinful reactions of all the disciples is a huge. And all that the spiritual master has taken. So a disciple must be very careful, must be very serious, must be very sincere in his Krishna consciousness, in his practice of Krishna consciousness, so that he does not commit sin and load it on to the spirit and pass it on to the spiritual master. So we should be concerned that yes, I must remain pure by chanting 16 rounds, by following the 4 regulative principles. This should be our, otherwise I am not obeying Srila Prabhupada's instructions. Srila Prabhupada is still living, and Prabhupada is still living with us. Prabhupada says that as long as all my disciples are not transferred to the spiritual world, I will continue to remain here. So that's a very heavy responsibility that we have. And then Prabhupada further says that, but because a pure devotee is engaged in the most important work of preaching the message of Krishna to all the souls of Kali Yuga, because he is engaged in this, and in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, Nacha tasman manu kaschid me priyakrittamaha. There is who's the dearmost person of Krishna. It is he who is engaged in preaching the message of Krishna to everybody in this world. So Prabhupada says, although a pure devotee is getting all these sinful reactions, but because he is engaged in preaching the pure message of Krishna to everyone, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his touch, cleanses and purifies the pure devotee and always keeps him pure and clean. So these are some of the important instructions that we hear from Prabhupada's words. That is the power of, so the spiritual master is, just like in the morning we sing every day, Samsara dava nalalidha loka tranaya karunya ghana ganatan praptasya kalyana guna arnavasya. The spiritual master is like the cloud pouring rain, and he is getting that from the ocean of mercy, from the ocean. So in the same way, we have, just like the Ganges is always pure because of it being touched by the lotus feet of Lord Hari. It is always pure. You go to Ganges, sometimes you will see that the Ganges water is dirty. Some dirt is flowing. Sometimes you will even see some stool floating on it. But it never becomes dirty like that. It is always pure. And you'll see people also, they have got so much of faith, so much of Shraddha, so much of conviction that yes, this water can purify me because it is touched by the lotus feet of Lord Hari. That faith is there, so much of it that even if they see some dirt in, material dirt in Ganges, they will just, with their hand, they will, do it like this, put it aside, and they will take bath. So that is the potency. It will never become contaminated. So this is the position. So in the same way, a spiritual master also is completely pure. And he has the potency to purify us completely. And we are so blessed. We have Srila Prabhupada with us. We have his teachings. We have everything of his with us. We have all means to be touching Srila Prabhupada always. So that is the position of Mother Ganges. And so in the Bhagavatam it is mentioned that we should worship Mother Ganges, because this is her glorious position of being always pure and uncontaminated. And how do we worship Mother Ganges? You go to Ganges, and another important instruction that Prabhupada gives from this instruction of worshipping Mother Ganges, we worship Ganges by going to the Ganges, taking bath, and then standing knee deep or waist deep. And then you take water from the Ganges and chant some mantras and offer it to Mother Ganges. That is the way of worshipping. Basically taking water from Ganges and offering it to Ganges. That's the way of worship. You see millions, many people do. It doesn't cost anything. It just takes, you have to give your time and you have to do this, that's all. Otherwise it doesn't cost anything. So now you see, when you take water from Mother Ganges, is Mother Ganges losing any water? She has got so much of water. And so she's not losing. And when you offer the water back to Mother Ganges, is Mother Ganges gaining any water? Nothing. So in the process of worship, actually Mother Ganges is neither gaining nor losing. It was her water and you're offering it back to her. But by doing this process of taking it from her and giving it to her, you are becoming devotees. We are becoming devotees of Mother Ganges. This is the process. So in the same way, Prabhupada says that whatever we have received from Krishna, there is nothing that we have, everything that we are using in this material world has been received from Krishna. And so everything must be offered back to Krishna. That is how we become devotees of Krishna. Prabhupada he would write books. So he gives a very nice example with this particular, he gives many examples. Like he says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. This, you may collect leaf, flower, fruit, water. Actually, it is not yours. Just like Ganges water is not yours, you give it to her. You take it and give it. So similarly, these things also do not belong to us. Krishna only has given us. So we take it from Krishna and we give it back to Krishna. And like that, we become devotees of Krishna. But the most important thing is giving it back to Krishna with devotion. So it's not just for Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, for everything. This body, my intelligence, my senses, everything is given by Krishna, so it must be used in Krishna's service. Prabhupada writes, it's a very nice, simple example, very nicely he explains. Now suppose I am writing books. All right. In which you are writing? You're writing on paper. All right. So who has given you the paper? Now you make a philosophical study. Well, paper I purchased from the market. Market. Okay, market, how does the market supply paper? It is manufactured in mills, in the factory. Or it is manufactured in the mills, in the factory. Where they get the raw material, because for manufacturing paper you need raw material. Where they get the raw material? Now that raw material is the wood. So how is the wood produced? Do we manufacture wood? Do we produce wood? No. Wood is produced in the forest. Wood comes from Mother Earth. So now you come to know, like this you come to the point, you will come to God. God provides wood. You cannot produce the wood. You simply bring wood from the forest and get it chemically purified, make a paste, plaster, and then roll it, and then paper is made. So no raw material you can manufacture. Raw material has to be taken from God's stock. Now, if the raw material is taken from God's stock, then how the paper becomes yours? This is Krishna consciousness. So from the simple example, Prabhupada is explaining how if we have this consciousness that everything that we have with us, this wood, this mic, everything is provided by God. And so since it's provided by God, we must use it in God's service. So coming back to Mother Ganges, we saw that Mother Ganges is very pure and it purifies us, and how a pure devotee is also equally purifying. Now, it was mentioned, Darshane Pavitra Koro, Ei Tomar Gun. You can just, the pure devotee has the potency to purify us just by his darshan. So how do we see, how do we take darshan of Srila Prabhupada? How do we see a pure devotee? Prabhupada writes that seeing a pure devotee means hearing him. It is not just by seeing, of course he has the potency. He can, by his mercy, purify anyone just by his darshan. That is there. That is his power. That is his prerogative. But for us to actually see Prabhupada, we have to hear him attentively. How to hear him? What is the best way to hear Srila Prabhupada? Vaishnava, another place is saying, Vaishnavera kriya mudra vijnanera na bujhaya. Generally, we think, okay, seeing means, okay, seeing what he is doing, how he's acting, how he's conducting himself. But Vaishnavera, for a pure devotee, kriya mudra, seeing his, seeing him, seeing his actions, seeing his different thing, vijnanera na bujhaya. Even the most intelligent person cannot understand a pure devotee's, his things. But if you hear, so Prabhupada says, basically he said, he heard it from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that if you have to judge a pure devotee, don't judge him by seeing him, judge him by hearing him. How he speaks, what he speaks, because it is this hearing that can actually purify us. So, just like Ganges can purify us, pure devotee can purify us, and Krishna Katha can also purify us. Krishna Katha, whom all can Krishna Katha purify? Krishna Katha can purify the inquirer, the person who's inquiring about Krishna Katha, the speaker, the person who's replying about Krishna Katha, the hearer, all others who are hearing the Krishna Katha which the speaker is speaking, and the place. Everything it can purify, all these four things. And this combination of hearing Krishna Katha from a pure devotee is the most purifying method. There cannot be anything more purifying than this. So hearing a pure devotee speak Krishna Katha, actually a pure devotee only speaks Krishna Katha, he doesn't speak anything else. This is a very, very powerful and a potent combination. So this brings us to the point how we should hear a pure devotee speak. This combination is there. We have pure devotee, we have his words also. So both these things are available for us to become purified. But then, how we must hear, in what mood we must hear. So here Prabhupada says, I will just read out a few of these. How we must hear Krishna Katha from a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. This is about hearing Srila Prabhupada. Number one, we must be very attentive in hearing Krishna Katha. Because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one need not read any other Vedic literature. One need only attentively and regularly hear and read Bhagavad Gita. This one book, Bhagavad Gita, will suffice because it is the essence of all Vedic literatures, and especially because it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In another letter, Prabhupada is writing that Prabhupada many times says that we must not be neglectful about knowing the Siddhanta, because the Siddhanta, knowing the conclusions of the Vedic literatures, make us very strong. So Prabhupada is writing here, this Siddhanta is mentioned in all my books. And so the boys and girls of our Krishna conscious society should now give more attention for studying the books very attentively. Prabhupada is saying that all my disciples should give more attention for studying my books very attentively. Look at the 2 times he's using the word. Not just you should study my books very attentively. Prabhupada is saying you must give more attention in studying it very attentively. So Prabhupada is basically trying to bring a point, please hear me attentively. Next, carefully. I hope if you kindly read my books carefully, all your spiritual desires will be fulfilled. Saying just by careful hearing my books, all our spiritual desires will be fulfilled. Our desires are all spiritual. And if you have to fulfill them, we just have to hear Prabhupada carefully. In another place, Prabhupada writes, if you read my books, hear me carefully, then all knowledge will be revealed to you. So hearing attentively, hearing carefully, and then he says, hearing constantly. If you hear me constantly, what is the benefit of hearing constantly? He says, your lifespan will not be reduced. Actually, we are reducing our lifespan. But he says that it is not possible for the sun to take away your life. He's referring to the verse where Ayur Harati Vai Pumsam, with the rising and setting of the sun, our lifespan is reducing. But for a devotee who is hearing constantly Srila Prabhupada books, his lifespan will not, the sun will not take away your life. You are becoming immortal. So hearing attentively, hearing carefully, hearing constantly. Next he says, you must hear me thoroughly. If one studies a particular book, he must do so thoroughly. That is the principle. By thoroughly studying a limited number of books, one can understand the philosophy. In another place he says, if you read my books thoroughly, you will get supply to answer all questions. There will be no questions that will be unanswered. Every question will be answered if you study my books thoroughly. Everyone should thoroughly be well versed with the philosophy that we are putting. So now how will you be very thorough in studying? He's saying that you must be thorough in few books, but read it thoroughly. And not only that, Prabhupada is saying, that means you must read. Now, you may say, okay, 1 or 2 days I read it very thoroughly and this day, someday happened. Prabhupada in this letter to his disciple is saying, you must read thoroughly my books every day. This is his Prabhupada, this is his desire from us. This is his instruction to us. And last, he says, of course there are many, not that this is the last, we have to hear Prabhupada, read Prabhupada, scrutinizingly his books. So we have to become Krishna conscious by scrutinizingly study the authoritative book. Each and every shloka should be very, very scrutinizingly understood. Each and every shloka. So one who reads, another place he's saying, so one who reads Brahma Samhita very carefully and scrutinizingly can understand everything about Krishna without fault. So you see, just hearing has the solution. All our problems lies in hearing. Look at the words Prabhupada is using. We must hear him attentively. We must hear him carefully. We must hear him constantly. We must hear him thoroughly every day. We must scrutinizingly read every shloka. So unless and until we are very fixed up in this, and we are hearing all this so wonderfully from Srila Prabhupada, and Srimad-Bhagavatam is actually like nectar. So a nectar being spoken by a pure devotee, and it is freely available, we cannot afford not to be reading thoroughly every day. We are all busy with our duties. Yes, duties must be done. But this is the most important duty that Srila Prabhupada is telling us. There cannot be any more important duty than this. This will keep you spiritually fit. This will keep you active. This will keep you spiritually strong. And unless and until we are spiritually strong, we will not get strength to do our spiritual duties. So, under no circumstances we should neglect this most important aspect of our devotional service, of our sadhana. Hearing, reading attentively, sincerely, thoroughly, carefully, constantly. And if we do this, spiritual life will be so simple, so easy. Without a doubt. All your problems, this problem, that problem, health problem, everything will be solved. Even health, Madhu Manipur was once saying, if the Shravanam is not good, then health problem will also come in. Because health problem comes from where? From mind. Because mind is full of anxiety, full of stress. So the mind, the medicine of the mind is good Shravanam, good hearing. How Parikshit Maharaj heard Srimad-Bhagavatam? Parikshit Maharaj was hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam and said he was drinking the juice of Srimad-Bhagavatam through his ears. So of course, we have a material body and we have our, it's not, but so it is not, so we should, basically what I'm trying to say, we must give it a very sincere attempt to be engaged like this in our hearing Srila Prabhupada. Although we may fail, we may not be able to, for practical limitations, for material limitations, these bodily limitations, but still we should make our best attempt. And if Prabhupada is saying that, yes, this devotee is sincere, he is making a sincere attempt in hearing me attentively, he'll be very pleased and we'll be blessed. We'll end here. Grantra Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.